Hi, thanks for joining me once again for a free painting lesson. I'm Wilson Bickford. I'm a professional artist, author, and painting instructor, and I'm going to show you some little tricks today to churn out your own little winter scene painting. I'm from northern New York, so I know all about snow. I know the beauty of snow. I enjoy the winters as much as I can by doing some snowshoeing and taking photos of the surroundings of the beautiful snowscapes. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. I wanted to mention too, on my palette, I'm using my signature palette today, which is the Wilson Bickford Signature series. I've designed this with an ergonomic hand grip. I've also added some holes to facilitate some of the brushes. These are sized to some of my smaller brushes that will fit in here rather than having them roll around on the table all the time. So I just wanted to share that with you. This is a nice palette. It's white, so it's very easy to mix your colors on. I prefer a white background versus gray or just a typical wooden palette. For simplicity's sake today for the filming though, I'm going to put this down here on the table so I'm not moving the palette around. It'll be a stationary view for you so you can see exactly what I'm mixing as I'm mixing it as the cameras pull in on that. I won't actually need these particular brushes, so I'll set those to the side. What I have planned today is a very simple painting. I've got 4 colors and I'm going to use 2 brushes. My 2-inch scenery brush and my number 3 fan brush. I do have a script liner here because I will touch on the end, show you how to sign your painting with a brush. A lot of people ask about that, how to put their signature on their painting. So I'll show you that. On my palette today I have some of my signature oils. These oils are very thick and full-bodied. They're made for wet-on-wet application. They're very thick and pasty, as it were. But the idea is you can thin paint down and put thinner paint over the top of these thicker foundation layers once we get rolling with it. So that's the beauty of it. When you're working wet on wet, it's very important to have a nice, thick, firm-bodied paint like this. What I'm using today is ultramarine blue, Van Dyke brown, emerald green hue, and titanium white. I'm also going to be using some of my signature fast flow white medium, which is a base coat that I'm going to apply over the whole canvas. It allows me to get blendability and soft edges where I require them. Makes the paint flow onto the canvas a lot easier. I have some of that squirted out on a small disposable paper sheet down here. I also have some of my Bickford Fast Flow Clear Medium. If paints need to be thinned down as I progress in this painting, I can dab into that and use that to thin my consistency of my paints down. So, and I'm using one of my signature canvas panels for this. These are MDF core, like masonite. They're not the typical cardboard center cellulose type variety. Very archival, very resistant to warping. So I'm proud to offer those as well. Okay, let's do a little painting here. I'm thinking something kind of in the blue-gray range, kind of cold and wintry. I've been doing a lot of warmer scenes on some of these free painting lessons that I've been doing, so I thought maybe we'd do something a little on the cooler side with blues and grays. I'm going to take a little bit of this fast flow white medium on my 2-inch scenery brush. I'm going to put a nice thin coat over this whole canvas. Now you might not be able to tell there at home, but I can tell by the glare from the studio lights on this canvas what is the correct application. Basically you just want to scrub in a very thin coat. Your board will look a little bit shiny where you've applied the paint and dull where it's not. Actually, let's go a step further and do this. I think this will be a great idea. If I can get the studio lights and get the cameras on this just right, you might be able to see a shine on that in certain spots and a dull area. You can see where I've put that. It's a little shiny here. It's a little duller down here. Not sure if that's showing up, but we'll try that. Sometimes you rotate that in the light, it's easy to see. But basically you want to look for a nice subtle shine over the whole surface and get that evenly distributed. Another way you can check that is to just touch it with your fingertips. Make sure that you're actually getting a little bit of paint on your fingertips. It doesn't take as much as you think. A lot of people will tend to put this medium on way too heavily. Notice that you can't see any brush strokes within this paint film. I've got it scrubbed right into the tooth of the canvas. And like I said, this just facilitates the spread of the other layers that we're going to put on. It gives you blendability. If you're a watercolorist, this is like using damp paper to apply your color. It'll soften your edges where you want softness. And I do want some softness in this. I have a little idea in my head. I might switch gears in at midstream, you never know. I'm just going to paint what comes out of me, and something reminiscent of my neck of the woods where I live in northern New York State. Okay, I'm going to take some ultramarine blue, a little bit of the Van Dyke brown into that to dull it and gray it somewhat. What I'm cooking up here is my sky color, maybe a little bit of white if it's too dark. I just want to get something that's kind of a blue-gray sky color. I'm thinking kind of cool and wintry. Work it in evenly into the brush so there's no streaks or chunks on the ends of the bristles. And I'm thinking there's going to be a horizon line in here, maybe somewhere down about here, give or take, with maybe a meadow in front here and then some background and trees. So I'm just kind of giving you a map there to see what I'm seeing in my head. I'm just kind of winging this more or less. Once you start to paint, you're able to do that. You can kind of envision scenes and compositions in your head and then just throw them onto the canvas, which is a really nice way to go about it. It's total freedom. You can just kind of do it, and anything you can dream up, you can slap on canvas, and that's what makes it fun. Okay, so see, if I don't paint that solidly like I would a wall, if I leave it blotchy like that, it looks like it has atmosphere and depth in it, some cloud movements. So it looks like a pretty menacing sky. I'm planning on having some snow in this anyway, some falling snow later on, so I want it to look kind of stormy and cold and wintry, just like I said. I'm going to wipe this brush off. Like I said at the outset, I'm only going to use these two brushes. I can accomplish a lot with these two brushes. You will be surprised. I'm going to take this brush and wipe it off, and I'm going to come back and just use a broad X stroke like this, just to kind of soften everything out. You'll see that the brush marks become less evident and everything gets kind of blurry and soft looking, more like a sky, not like brush strokes. It's exactly what I wanted. And see that white base coat, that's what that's for. That's the job that does. All right, that's looking pretty good. See, that looks like a sky. Like I said, if I paint it just flat blue, it's going to look flat like the wall here behind me. So the key is not to make it too solid. I'm going to lay that brush to the side for just a second. And I'm going to take a little bit of that color that's already here on my palette. If you've painted with me before, you know that I'm notorious for just building one color off the next. I'm going to use this as a base. I'm going to need a little more of that. I'm trying to save some of that for snow shadows later on, so I just need a little more of it. But in theory, I'm using basically the same color. It's just the blue, a little bit of white, a little bit of the brown. But into that, I'm going to put just a little touch of this emerald green. Emerald green is a great color, but it's pretty strong, so I just need a little pinch of that. I want to get something that's kind of a gray-green for some distant trees way back here. And it's like making soup. If I'm mixing up a big batch of soup here with a ladle, I have to taste that every now and then, see if it needs a little pinch of this or a little dash of that. So I'm actually going to put some up here on my canvas and see what I think. Actually, that looks pretty good for what I want. So I'm thinking that there's going to be a tree line way back here. Notice I've got it running uphill. In my neck of the woods, there's a lot of hills. We live at the basically in the foothills of the Adirondack Mountains. So we have a lot of rolling land and hills. And besides that, it's pretty boring if you just put your line in straight. So what I'm doing is just establishing this against the meadow that's going to be in the foreground. And then I'm going to tap the brush open so it's really loose. And if I just use a tapping motion like this, use enough paint so you're getting that really needly texture. I'm hoping that you're seeing that close enough. But this will yield a very fuzzy, needly looking texture for distant trees. And I just incorporate it down into that line that I put through. And you want some variety in it. So you got some ups and downs, and it's just not straight across like a hedge. See, I kind of work the whole canvas. I'll do a little, rather than go all the way across, I kind of work back and forth. That gives me more chance to kind of throw this out of balance. Have a few taller, a few shorter. If I get a little bit of green down here in the snow area, I'm not worried about it. I can whisk that right out of there with a clean brush, just like nobody's business.